all about duct tape and all about cooking. Today she's sharing her recipe with you for stuffed mushrooms. No duct tape involved in this one. And you definitely don't want to put it, one thing, you don't want to put it on a pan because then that can get really, really messy.
Right.
All right, stuffed mushrooms, and you're using button mushrooms. Any reason you chose to use button mushrooms? There are some different types.
Well, I don't like them to get too big because once you have to put them in the oven and the water content in it, it drains it and it makes it shrivel up, and I just like these because of the size, and they're delicious.
Okay, well, all right. So the first thing you want to do, of course, wash them, remove the stems, and you've already done that.
Yes, and then you want to flip them stem side down. I'm just going to slide these in the oven at 375 degrees, and we're going to leave these in here for 10 minutes.
Okay.
And while these cook, we'll start preparing the stuffing for the mushrooms.
Okay, what are we going to use for the stuffing?
Okay, we're going to use ground turkey. We're going to start it off by cooking this. We're also going to add some white cheddar cheese, some spinach, and we're going to use some breadcrumbs and minced garlic. So right now, this pan is nice and hot.
And you're using the turkey, you're keeping it pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Because the mushrooms, low in calories, sodium, fat, cholesterol free, and they provide a lot of important nutrients, including the B vitamins. And we know that helps break down the fat, helps break down the proteins, the carbs, turns it into energy. So we like that.
Love that. And this can be a really fancy recipe if you want to impress some guests, to make these as an appetizer for maybe a dinner party or something like that. And it's really simple to make. It only takes about 20 minutes. You have to get your hands into it. I'll show you that, coming up a little bit later. But it's really easy to make, really simple, really fast, and it turns out, really delicious in the end.
Danny, when did you start cooking?
I started cooking in the kitchen when I was a little girl. I used to like to help my mom. I would scramble the eggs for her. I was probably, 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I started cooking on my own when I was in elementary school. And I've been cooking ever since.
So the first thing you ever made, eggs?
Scrambled eggs. And I used to do a lot of baking. I had an easy bake oven. And so I would make a lot of cupcakes and, bakery things.
So you bake and you cook.
Yeah.
Look at that. And she gives us tech news, which she's going to be doing in just a few minutes. In the meantime, this recipe is online right now on fox10tv.com on our Studio 10 page. We'll let this turkey brown a little bit, and then we'll start the next step in a few minutes.
Danny D in the house in our Rouse's kitchen. Smells good up in here. What y'all got in here?
All right, I added some minced garlic to my ground up turkey, and I'm adding spinach now so that it can wilt up, and I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. I took my mushrooms out of the oven and flipped them over, and it only took about 10 minutes.
And that's what we're working on if you're just joining us, stuffed mushrooms. So what we have in the pan here, this is all going to get placed in these mushrooms, huh?
Absolutely. Once the spinach wilts, I'm going to put it in a bowl, and I'm going to add cheddar cheese, white cheddar cheese, and I'm going to add some breadcrumbs.
Ooh, that sounds good. I could just eat that mix right there, even without the mushrooms.
You can. The last time I made these, I did just that. I made some mushrooms, and the rest I ate. But we're going to do a little meatball action once we put it into the bowls, because you have to fit it into your mushrooms. So you want to roll it up with your hands into little balls and place it inside the mushroom caps.
All right.
And I like to put a little extra cheddar cheese on the top of mine so that you get that nice gooiness on top. And bake it in the oven for 10 minutes, and then they're done.
All right, so the plan here is to get this to a point where we can make them into meatballs. We place it in there, cheese and stuff. Put it in the oven, and then it's done.
Yep.
That sounds fantastic. How did you come up with this recipe, or where did you learn this?
I found a stuffed mushroom recipe on the internet. It didn't have ground turkey in it, and so I added the ground turkey and the spinach, and I just took a recipe and made it my own.
Oh, that's why we have you in the kitchen, Danny, because you're so creative and so fantastic. I love that garlicky smell that's coming out of there as well. Like I said, I might have to try this recipe.
Okay.
I like what you're doing here.
Thanks.
Very impressive. So I tell you what, she's got to work on this ground turkey and mix that we have going on here for a little while until we get to the point where we can roll it up, and we'll check back in just a little bit. Good job, Danny.
Thanks.
Back to Studio 10 in our Rouse's kitchen with Miss Danny Dials, who is sharing her recipe for stuffed mushrooms this morning. They sure do smell good.
Thanks so much.
So you have mushrooms, and tell everybody again what you stuffed them with.
I stuffed them with ground turkey and white cheddar cheese.
Okay, well, this is how they turn out. The recipe is online, fox10tv.com on our Studio 10 page. Now, I'm not a mushroom fan. My fiance absolutely loves mushrooms, so he'll buy them every now and then. And one thing that I thought was interesting, you know, it's easy to tell when food goes bad in the refrigerator. If it starts growing mold, you know it needs to be thrown out, or if it smells bad. But since mushrooms are technically considered the fungus, how do you know when to throw them out? So if you don't know this and you're cooking for someone else, mushrooms, you look for them to, of course, smell. That's anything. But you look for wrinkles, and when they start getting slimy, that's when you need to throw them out, or when they develop dark spots. And so that's what I realized, just a little fun fact about mushrooms if you're cooking for somebody else. And you can extend the shelf life if you refrigerate them in a tight plastic bag and do it whole. And they say if you want to freeze them, you can do that for 6 to 8 months. Cook them first.
You are full of information, Cherish.
You have to know. When you have somebody who loves mushrooms in your household, you have to know how to cook them and some good stuff about them. Well, I know these are going to be good. They look very pretty, don't they? The presentation is very nice, Danny. I know this is one of your favorites too,
yes,
huh?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again for sharing the recipe. Fox10tv.com on our Studio 10 page, and you can make these at home.